Good evening, everyone. My name is Andrea Chambers. I'm the Executive Director of the Center for Publishing at NYU School of Professional Studies. Welcome to the latest in the NYU Media Talk series, co-hosted by the Center for Publishing and by the NYU SPS Office of Alumni Relations. We're just delighted to have with us tonight our students, members of our faculty and our advisory board, our alumni from the program and from across the school, and all of our friends and our colleagues in the university and the publishing communities. A very warm welcome to our moderator and our panelists. I look forward to telling you more about them in just a few minutes. Now tonight, everybody, we look forward to an extraordinary conversation about a wonderful, wonderful book, Braiding Sweetgrass, chosen as this year's NYU Reads selection. Now, as part of this program, all incoming freshmen are asked to read a single title, and everyone at the university, faculty, staff, administrators, alumni, all are encouraged to read the book and to join in programming and conversation about its message. Now, at the Center for Publishing, home of the MS in Publishing program and the NYU Summer Publishing Institute, our mission not only is to foster publishing education, but to host important conversations like this one tonight. And now to our special guests. We are really thrilled tonight to have with us Robin Wall Kimmerer, whose extraordinary book, Braiding Sweetgrass, Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teaching of Plants, has captured the hearts and minds of readers all over the world. Robin is a plant ecologist, she's a writer, and she's an educator, and she serves as the founding director of the Center for Native Peoples and the Environment. Robin will be joined in this panel conversation by her editor and her publisher, Daniel Slager. Daniel is CEO of Milkweed Editions, the publisher of Braiding Sweetgrass. Now, I know that Robin and Daniel will tell us all about how this book came to be published and about that author-editor relationship. Our third panelist is Stephen Sparks, the owner of Point Reyes Books in Northern California, one of the many independent bookstore owners who spread the word about Braiding Sweetgrass and helped put it on bestseller lists everywhere. Stephen is a writer himself, whose work has appeared in Tin House, the Paris Review Daily, Music and Literature, and elsewhere. Now, moderating this conversation is Andrew Albanese. Andrew is senior writer for Publishers Weekly, and he too is a writer and the author of The Battle of 999, How Apple, Amazon, and the Big Six publishers changed the ebook business overnight. Robin, Daniel, Stephen, and Andrew, we're so happy to have you with us tonight. Welcome and thank you. We're very excited to hear how Braiding Sweetgrass became such a publishing phenomenon, how this very special book, published by an independent press and launched largely through word of mouth, has truly defied publishing conventions in its success, its pathway to success from the backlist to the bestseller list. Now, I'm sure that all of you tonight will have lots of questions. Please do put those in the Q&A box. We will respond to them at the end of the panel discussion. Before we begin, I want to say just a few words of thanks to all of those who've worked so hard on this event tonight. I'd like to acknowledge Daniel Orenberger Hopkins in the Office of Alumni Relations for her hard work. And to our team at the Center for Publishing, heartfelt thanks to Paul Amadeo for his amazing hard work, to Judson Simmons, Julie Blackberg, to Patrick Brady. Thank you all. And now, everybody, I want to turn the conversation over to Andrew Albanese and the panelists. I'll see you at the end of the conversation, and thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Andrea. In keeping with tradition, I too would like to open this discussion with gratitude. I'm grateful this evening for the chance to guide this discussion about a truly remarkable book and a truly remarkable publishing story. So to set us up here, when the great Minneapolis-based indie publisher Milkweed Editions first published Robin Wall Kimmerer's Braiding Sweetgrass in 2013, I think it's fair to say there was modest publicity coverage. And, you know, the standard in book publishing goes that you have about 3 months, if you're lucky, from when you first publish a book to sort of get the sales ball rolling. Or the next season comes up and it's on to the next thing for readers. But every once in a while, books don't play by the rules, and Braiding Sweetgrass is one of those books. The paperback edition first appeared on the New York Times bestseller list on February 9th, 2020, sneaking in at number 14. What's that, about 6 or 7 years after its publication, and it's just taken off from there. Today, the book has sold more than 1 million copies in all formats. The book has been published in 16 foreign territories and it's been on the New York Times bestseller list for 95 weeks. It's currently hitting, I believe, at number 3. So tonight we wanted to explore and to celebrate this remarkable publishing success. And we're going to talk a little bit about the feedback loops that are so essential to the success of any book, from author to editor, readers and booksellers and librarians, and of course, publishers and the media. And we're going to take a peek behind this incredible publishing story and talk a little bit about how Braiding Sweetgrass managed to defy the publishing world's law of physics and find its audience. So to start us off, I thought I'd ask the panelists to speak very generally about their roles in this story. And as with any book, the journey starts with the author. So tonight I'll begin with Robin Wall Kimmerer. Robin, welcome. Thank you for being here.
So delighted to be part of this conversation.
So look, I know this is going to be a difficult question to answer, because I'm sure when you set out to write the book, you set out to write a great book. But when you were writing the book, or even considering writing the book, did you ever think that it had the potential to go on and sell 1 million copies? If you could just take us back and share your vision, your initial vision for Braiding Sweetgrass.
No, of course, I had no idea at all. And so I'm really intrigued by this conversation because it remains a bit of a mystery to me. And I'm really interested to hear everybody's story about it. But you know what I did before this conversation? I went back to my book proposal. It was many computers ago. I had to do some hunting. And what I found in that book was in that proposal for the book was this really idealistic vision that came from a place of real pain. The proposal starts off with, I see the damage that we're doing to the earth. As a plant ecologist, I see this suffering. And what am I called to do as a scientist and a scientist storyteller? So I laid out in the proposal this vision that what I wanted these stories to do would be to help people fall in love with plants again, or heck, even just see them again and know of their wisdom. And I also, in the book proposal, had written that I hoped that this would be medicine, maybe in the way that our Indigenous communities thinks of medicine as real healing for a relationship with the earth. And that's really was the theme of the book proposal. And it would have been my loftiest aspiration that it should reach any readers beyond my circle at all. So this is an amazing gift for me.
Well, 1 million copies and counting. Daniel Slager and Stephen Sparks. We'll get into the specifics about how we got here a little bit more in a bit, but to get us started, just give us a sense about why you think this book hit home with readers. And Daniel, I'll start with you, and then Stephen, you can just jump in after.
From my perspective, I think that it's obviously the lenses, the perspective, the unique perspective Robin brings to the book, really the dual perspectives, her training as a botanist, and then what she's learned from Indigenous elders as an Indigenous woman, a rare combination of perspectives, singular in my experience. But then I think even more important is Robin's voice, which articulates those perspectives in a way that is both profoundly lyrical, but also entirely approachable. And I think that combination has been powerful. And then I think also for any book to succeed, it needs to land at a propitious moment for the book. And I would like to think that the book has landed. This is the more hopeful part of me. That the book has landed at a moment where our culture is increasingly receptive to the vision Robin just described.
Stephen.
Yeah, that's Daniel and Robin. First of all, thank you both for this book. Robin, it's always a pleasure to see you on the screen, and hopefully again in Point Reyes sometime soon. I would say the same thing from where we are, like the conversations I have about the book in the store, like I think we're at this inflection point culturally, and it's not a surprise to me in some ways that the book landed on the bestseller list right before the pandemic. I think we're all seeing now, what has been obvious to some of us for a long time, that we need to rethink things, we need to reorient ourselves, and this book does that, and through conversations that we've had, and this is ahead of its time a little bit, and so it's a real benefit that it was published by Milkweed, that has kind of a longer vision and allow this book some time to get its legs under it.
So Daniel, I want to start with you tonight. I promised to talk a little bit about the publishing story. So let's talk about the publishing story, the Braiding Sweetgrass origin story. Did you solicit it? How did it first come to you? Did you sign it up right away? Talk a little bit about what the path was to signing this book up.
Well, Robin did not have an agent at the time and sent the book in. I went back and refreshed my memory also, Robin, in advance of this conversation. Sent the book in in an open submission period. So the manuscript came to us, not a complete manuscript, but the proposal Robin was describing, in an open submission period. And I was working very closely with a young man here at the time named Patrick Thomas, who brought it to me. And really, Patrick did the lion's share of the editing of the book, working very closely with Robin over following years. But he was very excited when he brought it to me. There was definitely a moment of discovery. I shared it with him. The writing was beautiful. And we had never encountered, again, the perspective I described initially. We were committed to publishing books, as we put it then and put it now, that expand ecological consciousness. I'd like to think that's why Robin came to us. I know we had published some other voices in this field, Gary Nabhan, Terry Tempest Williams, Rick Bass, and others. And I'm guessing that's why Robin came to us. And we weren't foolish enough to miss the opportunity, fortunately.
Let's talk a little bit more about the editorial process. You mentioned your colleague, and this book really does have just a wonderful structure. It feels almost natural. It's these self-contained pieces that fall into this cohesive whole. But as a former book editor myself, I know that's not an easy thing to pull off. So can you talk a little bit about the editorial process that led to Braiding Sweetgrass?
As I remember it from our side, the process unfolded more in fits and starts than I would like because of how strapped we were at the time. You have to imagine a very scrappy, small team of 5 or 6 people publishing a list of 12 to 15 books a year. And so frankly, we didn't have enough time to give it the kind of focused attention it merited at the time. Robin was patient with us. I'd like to think we contributed to the development of the manuscript in some way, but really Robin worked, and my recollection is that Robin, following that proposal, wrote probably the equivalent of a few books in terms of number of words and pages. And then there was a process of honing and shaping and developing in which we played a part. And really, that was a collaborative process here between Patrick and myself.
So we're going to get Robin's take in a moment, but before we go to Robin, I just want to ask about how you and the staff at Milkweed approached publication once you had the edited manuscript ready to go. Maybe you can share what your first P&Ls looked like, what you thought the book might sell. You spoke about how beautiful the book was and how excited you were. The words I didn't hear were, this is going to be big, commercial runaway success. So what were your expectations for the book and how did you approach publishing it?
Well, we didn't have a lot of experience with commercial runaway successes at that point. So we didn't really, it's kind of hard to envision something that hasn't happened. And we didn't know enough to have any sense of the possible scale for the book. We did know that we had something very special, and we brought it to our distributor, Publishers Group West, based in Berkeley, California. They've been tremendous champions of the book, and they helped us see the potential for the book from the outset. And obviously worked to get it into booksellers' hands. We did what we do to promote books. We sent the books out, advanced copies of the book out to reviewers in an attempt to seed reviews and media attention. We were middling successful in that regard, but we had a lot of confidence in the book. And at the time for us, a 10,000 copy print run, which was the first print run of the hardcover, was an ambitious move. We ended up having to reprint the hardcover a couple times before we went into paperback. So we had underestimated the book's potential appeal and resonance in the marketplace. We at the time were so scrappy. We worked a lot. In addition to everything I just described, we also seeded the book with independent booksellers, which has been a long-standing element of our promotional strategy. We have found that folks like Stephen and others like him can often make the difference between a book's success or not. So we work just as hard to interest booksellers in the books we publish as we do media. And I would say it was more a bookseller-driven success from the outset than media, clearly.
Interesting. Well, we're going to talk with Stephen a little bit about that in a second. But first, I want to go to Robin and get her take on it. I have pretty much the same questions for you, Robin, as I had for Daniel, only from the author perspective. Tell us a little bit about the editorial process from your perspective.
It was really a gift to work with Daniel and with Patrick Thomas, who were so careful with the book and understood sort of the delicacy of talking to two different audiences, both to a science audience as well as to an Indigenous audience, and the levels of accountability that were required there. And I'm really grateful for that. You're right to focus on the structure, and that was something that we talked a lot about and had a number of different forms that the stories could take. But when we settled on letting the plants lead the way and having this organic development of the arc of the ideas mirrored in the growth and use of plants, that just crystallized it. And once that arc was in place, it made all the rest of the editing and revision very clear, because there was a beautiful pathway for it to follow.
As your publication day rolled around in 2013, do you remember what you were feeling? I mean, whatever the commercial or critical reception, I'm sure you were feeling confident that you had written the book that you set out to write. Is that true?
Yes, yes, so much, yes. And so for me, there were really no feelings of trepidation or worry about its commercial success, because I'd said what I wanted to say and shared that message with folks. And I remember thinking, well, if people read it, how wonderful that is. But what was most important to me, I think, is that I could braid the sweetgrass, that I could tell the stories made up of those different kinds of knowledge in a way that felt like it had a lot of integrity. Again, thanks to the partnership with Milkweed, who consistently encouraged me to make the book even more of what it was, to really expand the vision and strengthen that authentic voice.
Now that the book has become this tremendous success, has it impacted your life? I'm curious to know your relationship to the book now that it's sold 1 million copies versus when you first handed it in and published it in 2013. Can you talk a little bit about how you feel about how your feelings may have changed over the years toward the book as it found its audience?
I am surprised by the power of those stories. It's the encounters that I have with readers are constantly opening my mind to the doorways and the pathways that they found into these Indigenous plant stories. So I look at the book always with new eyes through the eyes of a reader and think, oh, that's how you found your way in here. I don't think that I was writing the book with you in mind, but I'm so glad that you're part of that circle. So yes, I feel about the book that it is medicine, that it is doing its healing work. And I couldn't be happier for the power of story to achieve that goal. Has it changed my life? Yes. I don't have nearly as much writing time as I used to. I feel so committed to the ideas that are in the book that I really take seriously the responsibility for the book, to speak about it, to meet with various audiences, and to amplify the message of the book.
Thank you, Robin. Stephen, you know, Daniel credits independent booksellers with having a huge role in making this book. Let's talk a little bit about, booksellers see, you must see tons of forthcoming books, hundreds of them, before they get to market in the pipeline. Can you recall for us when you first took note of Braiding Sweetgrass? Was it from a catalog or a sales rep, a colleague, a librarian? Talk a little bit about how you came to interact with the book.
Yeah, so at the time I was at Green Apple Books in San Francisco, where I was one of two buyers, and I was like trying to remember if I must have seen an advance copy from our sales rep at BGW. We have a great relationship with Milkweed's distributor because they're here in the Bay Area, and I actually had to ask somebody at Green Apple, what was our initial order for the hardcover? And it was modest. We had a couple of copies, and it wasn't, best intentions aside, you get an advance copy. And I mean, behind me here on the floor are stacks and stacks of books. And I think it wasn't until about 6 months after the hardcover was out that I finally got around to the copy that I had been given, 6 months ahead of time or whatever. And we kind of realized we were sitting on something special here. And then we noticed the hardcover sales pick up a little bit. And nothing, it must have been 2014 when the paperback came out that we just started realizing that this is a book that'll just live on a display for years, and you'll have conversations about. So yeah, it started with our sales rep. We have a great relationship, especially with our indie press kind of colleagues. There's a real reciprocity there, I think, that is very valuable and important for what we do and for what they do.
So let's talk a little bit about your customers and what maybe the reader feedback was like. You discovered the book, you knew it was special. Did you hear that from your readers? What was the feedback from your readers like? Was it just in the store? Did you get calls, emails? Did you see it on social media? I'm curious to know how readers interacted with you about this book and let you know they thought it was special too.
Yeah, so we bought the store in Point Reyes in 2017, and Robin, I know this because I Googled it, but you were at the Mesa Refuge. You did an event here in 2013, maybe. I know the Geography of Hope conference, the previous owners of the store had a conference. So Robin had some roots in the community here in West Marin. And so the book was a book that was stocked here already when we took over. And I think the only thing that I changed was I started ordering it by the carton quantity because we couldn't keep it on the shelf. It's a book that lives in the front of the store. And it was through social media, it was through all the kind of normal channels, but mostly for us, it's conversational. It's people coming in and saying, especially in the last couple of years, I've heard of this book, or I knew you would have this here, or it's probably the most gifted book that we sell. Someone comes in, and anytime someone buys it, I say like, oh, you're in for a treat, and this is an amazing kind of life-changing book. And they sort of knowingly nod and say, yeah, I've read it 3 times. This is like the 6th copy I'm buying for a friend. And so it's that kind of book. It kind of keeps going in those ever widening circles.
Interesting. To sort of close that feedback loop, all of the stuff that you were hearing, all of the insights that you just shared, do you report those back to Milkweed, to the publisher? I know you have relationships with Milkweed and with other indies. Do you go back to them and say, hey, my readers are really loving this about this book. Maybe we can do something a little more here?
Certainly, we talk. Paul Yamazaki, the buyer at City Lights, who's been around for 50 years, always says this is an industry of conversations, and you want to talk and you want to report as much to the publisher that this is happening here, because otherwise it's just data that they get, right? And data is great, but it's not. And for us, it's also a question. It's like, what's happening? Is there something that we don't know out there that is driving this, or is it something that's unique to us? And obviously this isn't unique to us, but you want to get to the bottom of it while also letting it kind of retain its mystery and its magic, which this book does really well.
That's a really great point. Daniel, I want to turn back to you. I don't want to get too inside baseball here, but I do want to talk a little bit more about the marketing that Milkweed used for the book. So in the first year of publications, can you talk a little bit about the marketing that you relied on? Like, for example, how important were reviews and author events and social media?
Reviews were not particularly important. We didn't have a ton of reviews. It's certainly not in the major media. social media was not incredibly important, at least that social media that we were doing. The activity Robin alluded to, author events, was a powerful driver. You will have gathered already in this conversation what a wonderful advocate for the contents of the book Robin herself is. We did get maybe, I think it was just a year or two into the paperback's life, Robin was on the radio program, Krista Tippett's On Being, for a full hour. And that was kind of the perfect, it was obviously a great length of time to have a rich conversation, also a really good audience for the book and a broad audience. And that was powerful. And I think that Robin has been sharing messages related to the book or directly out of the book since the book was published. And if I had to be completely honest, Andrew, the book is not a marketing success story. It just isn't. The book is, this is really a genuine wildfire that grew from embers and has really developed organically. I wish it would reflect better on Milkweed Editions, if I could say that it were a marketing success story, but it would be a lie. I appreciate the question.
Well, let me ask you about things like design in the flap copy, because I've got my copy of the book here. I'll tell you a story. I bought the book before, well before I was signed on to do the panel. I brought it to my in-laws for the weekend. We were spending the weekend out there, and I set it down on the counter and I went skiing. And when I came back, my mother-in-law had gotten it and I was not able to get it back. She thought it looked like a beautiful book. She read the copy. Then she started reading the book and it was game over. It's like I had to let her have the book for 2 weeks before I could get back and get it myself. To what degree did design and copy and making it's a lovely book factor into the marketing of the book?
Yeah, thank you. I don't, of course, we never know exactly what all the factors are. These books work in mysterious ways. And even Stephen, who's closer to the customer, who walks a copy to the cash register than I am, couldn't always tell you exactly why it happens, why they decided to pick up one book as opposed to another, I'm sure. But yeah, the woman who's our creative director now, her name is Mary Austin Speaker. At the time, she was working with us as a freelance designer, wonderful poet and very talented designer, in my view, one of the best in the business. She designed the paperback package, and she gets very involved with every element of the package. From the 100% PCW paper, which aligns with the book's message, to the materiality of the cover, to the image. And then, of course, what we're always trying to do with any book is to develop a package that is an accurate representation of the book's contents, and then that is appealing enough for a customer to pick it up in a store. Just to add one more point that also develops something Stephen was saying, one of the things I've heard most often from independent booksellers across America is that customers will come into their store and pick up a copy from the table of this book and buy it. And if it is their first copy, they'll be back for 3 or 4 or 5 more to give to their friends. But you do have to get them to pick up that first copy. And then, of course, they have to be enthralled when they read it. And so I do think that the cover and the package, which certainly doesn't look like a bestseller, I suppose you could say, but now does. It has helped the book. I think it has.
Well, it looks like a book you want to pick up. So, and when you have a book as strong as this, getting in somebody's hands, you win the battle at that point. I'm going to move on to you in a moment, Stephen, but I had another question for Daniel, and that's, was there a moment when it finally popped? Like, what was it? And what happened to the marketing plan after you realized that, this book is really hitting and we're selling a lot? Did you try to come up with a marketing plan then to sort of match the success of the book?
Yes and no, to be totally honest. I mean, again, it is, I think were we a more commercial publisher, we would have put all our eggs into this basket and tried to maybe sell 10 million copies. It's not what we've done. We have continued to tell the story. We lead with the book every time we talk to anyone in the business. I think it helps. Robin continues to work to promote the book, but I've never been involved with publishing a book, and I've been working in publishing now for a few decades, where the sales of the book have doubled each of the first 6 years of its life.
Wow.
And so it is, and they started strong. So if 15,000 copies in hardcover, you can do the math 8 years later, when it keeps doubling every year, and that pattern hasn't stopped. So again, it's not a marketing success story, though along the way we've probably helped a bit.
Stephen, how do you do it? Talk to me about, how do you get that book into a reader's hands? Is hand selling a big part of the success at your store? Physical merchandising? Is there a digital aspect? Talk to us a little bit about, how you make the magic.
Oh, one of the great mysteries here. I think, the book has, as you were saying, the book is a nice object to pick up. I have my copy here, and it does stand out. There is sort of this simplicity to it that is striking. As cover trends change, this book, the kind of familiarity of it after you've seen it in a store several times, people who come to our store were in a rural part of California, north of San Francisco, but people come in and they say, like, I've seen that book every time I've come in here, and it's right at the front table and it stands out. So there's that physical merchandising for sure, talking about it. Robin has done events with us for other projects as well. I think we shared on Instagram the anniversary hardcover, which had, for us at that point, it was like into the thousands of likes, and we sort of thought like, oh, this is happening now. This is, and so that is an interesting part of it as well. But I think there's sort of there's a vibe to our store. There's an ethos that we things that we believe in and promote, and this book is probably at the forefront of that. Environmental, ecological, as well as sort of fundamentally shifting the way we think. But it's always in the store. It's always somewhere very visible. And so I think that, like I said, the familiarity, I think for us is what helps.
When the book hit the bestseller list in February of 2020, we were a month or so away from the COVID-19 pandemic shuttering stores. Can you talk a little bit about that? Here you have this book that's really starting to blow up and it's very timely, and you have to close your doors. How did you manage that?
Well, I looked at our sales. Our sales of this book in March 2020 were higher than the previous 3 months total.
Wow.
Part of that was Emergence Magazine, which are neighbors of ours, did a online book club. Sort of, in that dark moment where we're all thinking, what is happening? What's going to happen? They picked this book aptly. And, we were closed from March 15th to beginning of July, I guess, of 2020. It was at that point, it was basically just me coming in and mailing books, but this was our number one, the book I mailed the most. And you would think I would be tired of putting it into an envelope, but at the end of that, I kind of, I was marveling that this was the book that we were sending out that people needed in that moment, and that they wanted to support us by buying from us. So this is a book that helped us manage that period. And our sales, actually, I looked as well, our sales of the paperback in this store from 2014 to 2019, from 2020 and 2021, we outsold the first 5 years of this book. And this was a book that was in the bestseller list of the store for those first 5 years. So you can imagine the figures there, sort of to what Daniel said about the doubling of those numbers.
You look at the bestseller lists, and they tend to be dominated by the major houses. And it's not a surprise because they have the resources to make bestsellers. But the question I really wanted to ask you was, I want your perspective on this, and that's, to what degree do you think that this book succeeded because of its indie roots and because of the support of indie booksellers? And this is not to cast judgment on major houses. It's just saying there's a different set of demands there. But I'm really curious to know to what degree you think that this book's indie roots contributed to its success.
I think greatly, and I think it kind of coincides with indie bookstore. The world of indie bookselling is kind of shifting in a way. I think a lot of stores now feel a little more mission driven in a way. We certainly do. That it's not just like stock what you need to stock the bestsellers, but I think we're all sort of making this decision because books are so ubiquitous, you can get them anywhere, is to sort of hone in on what you value and what you believe in. And for us, and obviously at many other stores, this is a book that works in that regard. So I think there's certainly a tie in there. I've noticed in the store in the last few years as we've kind of settled in here after being here for 5 years. And also just like, again, we want to champion books that we believe in. There are certainly books in the store that sell well and help float those other books that might just kind of sit on the shelf for a few years. And I think, most booksellers value patience and playing a longer game as opposed to just turning out product. Like no, I don't think anyone that I know in bookselling has gotten into this because they want to sell a product, right? Like this, we have heart and soul, and we're people who care about things in the world, and we notice things changing. And so a book like this, coming from a publisher who also has that same kind of philosophical outlook, and an author who can articulate that matters. It matters a lot for what we do.
Hear, hear. Well, Robin, I want to bring you back into the conversation now. You've been listening to everything we've talked about, the success of the book. Just broadly, do you want to react to anything you've heard Daniel and Stephen say?
I do. Two things to mention in particular. When I hear from readers, one of the most common things that people say is, when I read your book, I felt a kinship. I felt like I was not alone. All this time, I thought I was the only one who felt this way about the land and about plants. And I said, oh, there's someone else here. And I think this phenomenon of gifting the book, which is the way it has really been moving, is a reflection of that. When you hand that book to someone else, you say, I think you're going to value this too. And then none of us will be alone in this thinking. So I think the passage of the to these wonderful insights, thank you for them, is that the world is changing. The world is changing. The world view from hyper-individualism to a sense of collective goodwill, from thinking that the earth is just property that we can dispose of at will, to loving the earth and caring for the earth. The world is changing. And I think that is part of the success of the book. People find a vocabulary and a sense of story that allows them to feel like they can propel that change. And the book was meant to create agency for people. You have gifts to give. You can be involved in reciprocity with the land. The book's an invitation, and I couldn't be happier that people have responded to that invitation and said, I'm in.
Is that what you hear from your readers? I really wanted to ask you about your interactions with your readers when you do events, or maybe they write letters and contact you. Tell us, is that what your readers are telling you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And especially that sense of thinking about the world as gift, and that gratitude matters, and that reciprocity matters, creates a sense of power in a time when there's so many messages that tell us environmentally we are powerless against the forces of destruction, shall we say. But this book says not necessarily. That by this collective shift in worldview, the whole world could change. And so other idealists listening to plants and to one another have picked it up and created community around it. And I think that's one of the most special things that have happened. When people write to me, they tell me what they're doing. I started a community garden. I joined a Save the Redwoods League. I wrote a curriculum for a forest preschool. I took a political action. People write very proudly about what they've done. And wow, it's so impressive. I'm so grateful for all those people who responded to the invitation.
Yeah, I'm curious about, I would love to get your take on to what degree the timing of this book contributed to its success, because I'm, coming at the end, 4 years of the Trump administration and the chaos that brought, and this me first message, there's a mindfulness to this book that's sort of it strikes a chord, I think, with people after an era of mindlessness, for lack of a better term. To what degree do you think that in 2020 that this book was just the right book at the right time for people?
Yes, I think that that's inevitably the case, because those very dark years brought us all to a place of saying, we have to do something differently. The fundamental premises of how we've organized ourselves clearly are not making us happy. They're destructive. We need something else. And the principles and practices of Indigenous knowledge and ways of relating to the land and to one another are a time-tested way of relating to the earth. It tells us, oh, we don't have to reinvent this. We have to reinvent it in a Western context. So it's not to be taken and appropriated. It is to awaken people to their own authentic relationship with the land. But I really think it's that people were hungry for imagination, hungry for another vision of how we might live.
Well, I'm going to turn it over to audience questions pretty soon. But before I do, I just want to ask each of you, is there anything that, I'm sure there's a ton of things I didn't bring up in this conversation that you might want to mention, but before we get into audience questions, anything that you want to respond or say before we get there? And I'll start with you, Robin, since we're chatting.
Yeah, sure. One of the things that has been a great delight for me about the book, especially once Daniel was telling me about the reports from booksellers saying that people were coming and buying it as gifts to hand to other people, is that, that's the way sweetgrass, the plant, moves. Sweetgrass is not a plant that blows its seeds all over the place. In order for sweetgrass to move, it has to be carefully transplanted and given hand to hand. So the way that the movement of the book mirrored in a very organic way the way the plant moves, for me, that harmony was deeply satisfying.
Daniel or Stephen, anything before we go to audience questions you want to say?
Just to add really briefly that the publishing this book and working with Robin over the last decade plus has been the most profoundly exciting experience in my time working in books, and also the most profoundly humbling. And it's also just great to be with you here today, Stephen. You articulate so well our shared interest in world changing, and which is really, I think, what this book offers a vision for. And so it's humbling for me. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just reiterate that as well. Booksellers' Legends, our joys are very vicarious, right? You're handing someone this thing that they're going to go have this experience with, and you may or may not see them or talk to them about it again. But with this book, this is the middle of a conversation, the start of a conversation, and it's led to that. And so to be a part of that chain of getting this and out into the world and into these conversations and into these community gardens and political movements and things has and continues to be just an incredible experience for me personally, for us as booksellers, and as a reader and a person in the world. Thank you, Robin.
Thanks to all of you.
Well, at this point, I'd bring Julie Blattberg into the conversation. I believe she has some audience questions. Julie, do you want to join us?
I do. Good evening, everyone. And what a wonderful conversation. I wish we had 2 hours so you all could cover all of the brilliant questions coming in through the Q&A box. I would like to start with a question that came in from a Center for Publishing professor and a few others asking about the content development process. Are there any stories that didn't make it into the book that you want to talk about?
Robin, I think better for you to take that one.
Well, Daniel, as you kindly said, I wrote many more words than that you all had to deal with. Yes, there were a few chapters that I was terribly fond of that still are in a file drawer looking for a place to live. One of them was called Yellow Snow. I don't know if you ever got to see that, Daniel, but it was a story about the reciprocity of excretion. And it was meant to be this really organic introduction to reciprocity, of lived reciprocity. And I think you and Patrick wisely counseled that the tone of that chapter might disrupt the rest of the tenor of the book. I'm grateful to that for you.
Well, I have a 9-year-old son who would love to read a book called Yellow Snow. So if you have a young reader edition in mind, that might be the way to go.
I should say there is a young readers edition
That's
coming
right.
out.
We should
YA.
mention that.
Yeah.
When will that be available?
I think it will be published later this year by the Learner Publishing Group. And I'm really excited about it, actually. It's being adapted by an Indigenous woman and author. And I believe you've had contact with her, Robin.
Yes, certainly have. Yeah, she's wonderful.
Yeah, very promising.
Yeah.
As you brought up Indigenous, there's a question I'd like to put to everyone on the panel. What lessons can we learn from the story of this book's publication about how better to amplify Indigenous voices? And connected to that, what needs to change in the publishing industry writ large to increase the publication of Indigenous voices? And you three are not responsible for the whole publishing industry, of course.
Well, I'll just address briefly from our perspective here at Milkweed Editions. We've done a couple things that I hope have been constructive. One, since taking on Braiding Sweetgrass, we have published a growing number of Indigenous writers, fiction, poetry, nonfiction. Surely the fact that we published Braiding Sweetgrass has encouraged more of these writers to come our way. But also, this was a mission-driven decision on our part, and many of these writers and books have found a wonderful audience. So that's, could we be doing more? Yes. Could all of us in publishing be doing more? Certainly. But we have made that commitment, and it's been wonderful. And then two, we used to have an internship program here, as a lot of publishers do at Milkweed. We've converted it into a fellowship program, a salaried fellowship program, and recruited very intentionally in the kinds of marginalized communities that have not typically been very well represented in our industry. And so currently, of the 3 fellows we have on our team, 2 of them are Indigenous. And I hope they'll become leaders in publishing in years to come. Again, we don't claim to be perfect at all, but these are a couple of things we've done.
Thank you. Perhaps that will lead the way for other entities in the book publishing ecosystem.
Certainly would be happy to have questions from anyone who's interested and to collaborate.
Wonderful. Another question about the kind of sales, marketing, and publishing. One question came from a librarian who wants to put this book into as many hands as possible. She's asking about the role of one community, one read. And another question came in about course adoption. So the 2 sectors that we haven't really spoken about at length, libraries and academic settings. Can you talk about that as a sales channel and buzz building channel?
It's been powerful for this book. We have worked hard to seed the book in those kinds of programs, both at colleges and universities and in communities, and it's been powerful. I could have mentioned that in response to what you were asking about, Andrew, with regard to marketing strategy, because that has been part of ours, as was the case at NYU, obviously, with the All Freshman Read program. That is a wonderful way to create meaningful conversation in a community, and we've done this. We've had the same thing happen in cities. But I think now Braiding Sweetgrass has been adopted by 18 colleges or universities as either all campus reads or all freshman reads books, and then obviously those young people and faculty are presumably gifting the book to other colleagues and friends following that.
Another question for Robin, please. Can you say some more about how plants showed the way for the building of the arc of the narrative?
Yes, sweetgrass itself is used as a tangible sign of our care for Mother Earth. It is literally braiding Mother Earth's hair, is how we think about that. And so the organic structure of the book was about planting the sweetgrass and harvesting the sweetgrass and braiding it and burning it and all of the steps that are associated with the cultural practices of the plant. And so in that way, the cultural uses of the plant gave us the flow for the ideas. And also the metaphor of braiding together traditional ecological knowledge, Western science, and the knowledge of the plants themselves. Every chapter is anchored in a plant who has something to teach us. So it is very much plant-centric. There are human voices, but it's really the plants who are doing the teaching.
This may be the most common question that's come through this evening. Robin, what are you working on next?
I am working on a book whose aspiration is that when you close the book on that last lovely page, the notion of the rights of nature will make perfect sense to you. It is a book designed to really showcase the teachings of plants, the culture of plants, the individual personality of plants as characters. And it is written with that notion in mind that the rights of nature is a really powerful movement for respecting the personhood of plants in a country where we respect the personhood of corporations. I think we can do better. And so that's the conceit of the book, to tell stories about plants in such a way that their personhood will be apparent.
Thank you.
So I believe that's our last question for the evening. Yeah, Julie, we're going to cut it off here, yes?
Yes, we're
Okay.
almost at 7.
Great. I just want to say personally, I want to thank NYU for inviting me to join the panel tonight. It's been a great honor to talk with you, Robin and Daniel and Stephen. It's one of the best parts of my job. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to have this conversation tonight. And with that, I'm just going to turn it back over to Andrea to close out the evening. Thank you again for this wonderful conversation.
Andrew, thanks so much for your extraordinarily deft moderating, for steering this conversation in all the right directions. And Robin, Stephen, Daniel, what a conversation. I know that from a publishing point of view, our students, our faculty, everyone listening tonight certainly really understood much more of the organic publishing process and the power of readers and independent booksellers to really spread the word about a book and bring it forward to the world. But I wanted to say also just a very special thank you to Robin. I think you captured so many of the sentiments that many of us are feeling currently as we emerge from what was described as a dark period. That there is gratitude and reciprocity matter. That really struck me, and I think probably struck a chord with many of us listening tonight, that the world is changing to a collective goodwill. That's a very powerful message that really resonated with me and perhaps with others listening tonight. So thank you for sharing all that. I do hope that good luck with your next book. We all are looking forward to it. And those chapters in the drawer, maybe not the one about yellow snow, but the others sound very exciting, and looking forward to maybe seeing those come to publication someday. So everybody listening, thank you. You were a great audience, great questions. We thank you for being here, and thank you for attending a Center for Publishing event. We look forward to seeing you going forward at other events. Everybody stay well, be safe, and thanks so much for joining us. Thank you all. Good evening.